Emma Carter always loved quiet afternoons. It was one of the few times she could slow down from her busy work schedule and just breathe. That Friday, the sun was warm but not overbearing, and the sound of sparrows chattering in the maple tree outside her window was almost like nature's own background music. She had just set out 2 mugs of steaming tea on the living room coffee table when her best friend, Claire, arrived. Claire was the kind of friend who could brighten any day. They had met in college, bonding over a shared love for old books and their mutual dislike for cafeteria coffee. Even though their lives had taken different paths, Emma working as a graphic designer and Claire running a small bakery, they still made time for these afternoon catch-ups at least once a month. "Still putting too much sugar in your tea?" Emma teased as Claire settled into her usual spot on the sofa. "Guilty," Claire grinned, pouring 2 generous spoonfuls into her cup. "Some things never change." They talked about everything: Claire's new dessert experiments, Emma's recent freelance project, and a funny misunderstanding Claire had with a supplier. The conversation flowed effortlessly, filled with laughter and little moments of silence where they simply enjoyed each other's company. Then came the knock. It was soft at first, almost hesitant. Emma glanced at Claire, eyebrows lifting. "Were you expecting anyone?" "Nope," Claire said, shaking her head. Emma got up, crossing the living room to the front door. Through the frosted glass panel, she could make out the outline of a tall figure. Something about the way the person stood, still and patient, gave her pause. She unlocked the door and opened it halfway. A man in his early 30s stood there, wearing a simple grey shirt and dark jeans. He held a small cream-colored envelope in one hand. "Emma Carter?" he asked, voice steady but polite. "Yes, that's me," she replied, cautious but curious. He glanced briefly past her, as if noting Claire's presence inside, then returned his attention to Emma. "I'm sorry to drop in unannounced. I need to speak with you. It's important." Emma hesitated. She didn't recognize him. "I'm sorry, but do I know you?" "No," he admitted. "But this concerns something you'll want to know." Something about his calm tone, neither pushy nor evasive, made her decide to let him in. She stepped aside, and he walked into the living room, glancing once at Claire before sitting in the armchair across from the sofa. Claire gave Emma a look that said, "Do you know what's going on?" Emma shook her head slightly. The man placed the envelope on the coffee table. "This," he said simply. Emma picked it up, noticing her name written neatly across the front in blue ink. The paper felt heavier than a regular letter, and when she opened it, she found a single photograph inside. The photo was of a small, old-fashioned bookstore, the kind with dusty wooden shelves and an antique cash register. The sign above the door read Willow and Page. Emma blinked. She knew that place. She had spent countless afternoons there as a child, reading on the floor while her grandmother chatted with the shop owner. But the store had closed over 15 years ago. Where did you get this?" Emma asked, looking up. "My name's Daniel Reed," the man said. "I'm the grandson of the man who owned that shop. He passed away recently, and while going through his belongings, I found a box of things he wanted returned to certain people. You were one of them." Emma glanced at Claire, who was just as puzzled as she was. "Why would he want to give me this?" Daniel's gaze softened. "Because you meant something to him. There's more in the box, but he wanted me to deliver them in person." Over the next hour, they talked about the bookstore, about Emma's childhood visits, and about her grandmother's friendship with Daniel's grandfather. The conversation shifted from surprise to nostalgia, and slowly, the tension in the room eased. At one point, Claire excused herself to make fresh tea, leaving Emma and Daniel deep in conversation about the old neighborhood. Emma realized that even though Daniel was technically a stranger, he carried a connection to a part of her life she had almost forgotten. By the time the sun dipped lower in the sky, Daniel stood to leave. Emma handed the envelope back, but he shook his head. "It's yours. And I'll bring the rest of the box next week, if that's all right." Emma smiled. "I'd like that." As he stepped out into the warm glow of the evening, Claire leaned against the doorway. "Well," she said with a grin, "that's one way to turn an ordinary Friday into a mystery." Emma laughed softly, holding the photograph against her chest. "Yeah, and I have a feeling this is just the beginning."